Good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. It is Monday, June 15th, and this is Q News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. And it's time to queer up the news.
In the headlines tonight, Supreme Court votes 6-3 that firing someone for being LGBTQ violates federal law. An LGBTQ police chief of Atlanta quits following a fatal police shooting. And 4 years after Pulse, the administration cuts healthcare protections for the trans community.
Also on Q News tonight, Trump's Republican Party proves yet again they are no LGBTQ ally. United Nations says enough is enough when it comes to conversion therapy. Colorado bill banning gay and trans parent defense heads to governor for signature into law. And Dr. Fauci warns that normalcy may not return until next year due to coronavirus case spikes.
And in our Fun the Big Finish tonight, we explore Civil War era Johnson & Johnson as they announce that black and brown people finally get a Band-Aid. Trudeau and Biden are added to the Global Pride 2020 lineup. And a tweet has people wondering if SpongeBob came out as queer over the weekend. In No Context Monday, tens of thousands of people demand Louisiana Confederate statues be replaced with Britney Spears. So good evening again, America. It's 7 p.m. Monday, June 15th, 2020. It's time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer Q News Tonight.
Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight.
Thank you, America, for joining Q News Tonight. We are live. This is a live show, so anything can happen, and tonight we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-guest anchor, David Hopkins, who's joined us before, and tonight, for the first time ever, co-guest anchor and the first straight anchor commentator we've ever had at Q News Tonight, Chris Swarner.
Glad to be here.
So let's cue up the news. Tonight we bring you Q headlines. The LGBT community in America is, of course, diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we bring you the bullet points of the queer news for today, Monday, June 15th, 2020. We begin by historic news. We queer up the USA as the Supreme Court announces today that they voted 6-3 that firing someone for being LGBTQ violates federal law. Watch this.
Good morning, Poppy. A landmark ruling out of the Supreme Court this morning. We have been awaiting this decision, and the decision now is clear from the Supreme Court. They have issued a ruling that now bans discrimination by employers against transgender individuals and gay individuals. This is a big ruling that was hotly contested at the Supreme Court when arguments happened at the end of last year here. This is quite an interesting opinion as well, because this is a landmark ruling for gay and transgender individuals. It was actually authored by conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, appointed obviously to the court by President Trump. This was written by him. This was a 6-3 decision. He was joined by the Chief Justice, John Roberts, as well as the liberal justices here. This is a 6-3 decision.
In the breaking news, the Supreme Court has ruled 6-3 in the case of Bostock versus Clayton County that firing someone who is LGBTQ is a violation of Title VII, with the key word in the law being sex. In the opinion of Neil Gorsuch, right who we're talking about, a Trump-appointed member of the Supreme Court laid it out simply when saying, quote, "An employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undistinguishable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids."
This is amazing that, this even the conservative judges, for the most part, side it. And even Kavanaugh, who did dissent, in his statement said that this is the way it should be. He just felt it wasn't the job of the Supreme Court, that Congress should have been the ones to make this a law.
I think this is a really great sign for the future of our community as a whole, because it proves that a conservative judge can in fact interpret old laws to mean that they protect LGBTQ, even though that's not what they were intended to do 50 years ago. So this is a landmark decision.
You have to wonder if this couldn't be applicable to other things that we worry so much about in the courts, like abortion, perhaps even gun-related issues, that it may not be as black and white, conservative liberal as we think. I think the message of Gorsuch writing the majority opinion of the court is an amazing moment in history. And this is the second time in 5 years that in June Pride Month, major constitutional issues have been resolved by the Supreme Court.
Next week, Queer Up the USA. An LGBTQ police chief of Atlanta quits following the fatal police shooting of a black man. Erica Shields, Atlanta's first LGBTQ police chief, resigned on Saturday, just hours after an Atlanta police officer shot and killed Rayshard Brooks, a 27-year-old black man in a Wendy's parking lot. Shields' career with Atlanta police spans more than 20 years, and she's faced more than once the task of cleaning up after missteps by officers involving the city's LGBTQ residents. In a brief statement issued Saturday, Shields said she was resigning to help the city mend its fraught relationship with Atlanta police. Rodney Bryant, a former assistant police chief and current interim chief of the city's corrections department, was named interim police chief.
This story honestly disgusts me because it's just another example of someone in the LGBTQ community being used as nothing more than a scapegoat for bigger problems.
Well, I think Atlanta proves something that Minneapolis didn't. They moved fast. The police chief took action right away. The city, in terms of the firing of the police officer, took action right away. This is not a clear-cut case by any stretch of the imagination, but they did indicate that they wanted to have decisive decision-making quickly.
I am livid, which is why I could barely get the headline out. I think this is a very clear-cut situation. Yes, this gentleman was intoxicated and fell asleep in his car going through the drive-thru. Yes, when he was woken up by the police, he resisted, grabbed a taser out of one of their hands when they were trying to tase him, and tried to run away, in which they shot him 4 times. He was not a deadly risk. They had no right to act with this type of force. They should not be judge, jury, and executioner. We have a legal system so that justice can be served, and these cops took it in their own hands on camera, and it's disgusting.
Next up, we queer up health. 4 years after Pulse, Trump administration cuts healthcare protections from trans community. In 2016, former President Barack Obama's administration changed federal guidelines on healthcare to expand to sex-based protections to include gender identity. But the Health Department of Health and Services and Human Services issued a statement saying the final rule is based on, quote, the plain meaning of the word sex as male or female and as determined by biology. In the summary of the final rule, the agency responded to some barbs cast by queer activists by comparing being trans to someone's political affiliation.
It's really a sad decision. The internet, of course, has been ablaze all weekend long on the decision. It calls into complete question the president's support of the LGBT community, and it is one step closer before the November 3rd election of whether he stands for the LGBT community or he does not. He proved with the decision from HHS he does not.
let's face it, if being transgender was a political affiliation, they'd get more attention and be able to have more funding. Especially do that on such an important date for the LGBTQ community just shows that he doesn't even, it's not even that he doesn't care, he has pure disdain for us.
Honestly, the only silver lining that I can see in this is the Supreme Court ruling today, which shows that this is going to be overturned eventually. The Supreme Court will not stand for blatant discrimination for long.
We queer up Vote 2020 and reporting that Trump's Republican Party proves yet again they are no LGBTQ ally. On the same day that the Republican Party revealed that their official platform still calls for an end to marriage equality, the GOP posted a press release claiming, quote, President Trump has taken unprecedented steps to protect the LGBTQ community. The release, when scrutinized, however, reveals nothing more than past promises that don't mean anything, such as using stronger language than any Republican president has used before in favor of equal protection of the LGBTQ community. The document contains a number of falsehoods, including to say that Trump has funded AIDS research when in fact he chose to cut $40 million from the CDC's HIV/AIDS prevention program.
There's a lot of sensationalization on both sides of this. Republicans under Trump's cabinet have done a couple of small good things for the gay community. He has actually put in a lot of money to HIV/AIDS funding, mostly into private labs and away from the CDC, but a lot of times it's a misrepresentation. While he has put more money into some parts, he's taken it from other parts, so he's not really giving anything.
Honestly, any money Trump gives from the federal government is probably to some donor making them money. He doesn't care, and I'm going to be glad when he's no longer president.
When we reported last week, Jared Kushner tried to stop this. We reported in the news at Q that he was trying to eliminate social issues that he thought were problematic for the Republicans. It just indicates how strong Jared Kushner's voice is in the Republican Party and really what little commitment they do to the inflammatory issues that they want to talk about.
Next, we queer up the USA. Pulse Anniversary ushers in report on gun violence impact on the LGBTQ community. A new report released by the Human Rights Campaign on the 4th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting highlights the impact of gun violence on the LGBTQ community. According to the report entitled, Remembering and Honoring Pulse, Anti-LGBTQ Bias and Guns Are Taking Lives of Countless LGBTQ People. More than 10,000 hate crimes are perpetrated in the U.S. each year involving guns. Furthermore, 3 out of 4 transgender murders that have occurred since 2013, as well as 8 out of 10 murders of black trans women, involved a gun.
None of this is going to matter until we all vote and we all use our power to get rid of the legislators who continue to protect the gun lobby. This has been disgusting for 20 years now.
America knows. We reported it. It's happening out extensively. Last year, I was in Orlando Regional's Crisis Center as this was unfolding 4 years ago. We are 4 years later, and we're still talking about the impact of guns and gun violence. Nothing has changed. In fact, since Pulse, it's only gotten worse.
I'm actually a safe gun ownership advocate. I grew up poor in Maine, hunting for my food, and guns were vital to my survival. That being said, they shouldn't be so easy to get. They should require safety training, and handguns are just for killing people. I don't believe in them at all.
Next up, we queer up the world. Japanese homophobia is distinct from American homophobia. Most Americans don't realize that the roots of Japanese homophobia distinctly differ from those of American homophobia. While American homophobia is often based on religious beliefs, outdated gender concepts, and fearful revulsion about queer sex, Japanese homophobia frequently stems from socio-cultural pressure to get married and have kids who will help care for parents and grandparents in their old age. Marrying a member of the opposite sex and having kids is also seen as a contribution that helps maintain Japanese social harmony. Currently, there are no national discrimination protections for the LGBTQ community of Japan.
We queer up the USA in reporting tonight that Killer Mike is mad as hell in response to the killing of Rayshard Brooks. Killer Mike is speaking out again after another black man died at the hands of the police. The rapper shared a passionate message on Instagram on Saturday regarding the death of Rayshard Brooks, who was shot in the back and killed by Atlanta police after he was initially found asleep at a Wendy's drive-thru. Rayshard Brooks, in the Instagram quotation, was said should be alive this morning. He should be waking up, hungover or drunk in the tank, depending on whether he was apprehended, and not dead. Killer Mike has been seen advocating publicly to not riot despite the anger and sadness within the black community, which he likens to burning your own house down.
Next, we queer up health. The United Nations says enough is enough when it comes to conversion therapy. The United Nations has gone on record saying that conversion therapy may amount to torture for those who are forced to go through it in a report released by the organization, which documented the global reach and impact of gay and transgender conversion therapy. It called upon nations around the world to work to ban the scientifically discredited practice. The report said that nearly half of those who suffered under the practice were subjected to it as children.
Next, we queer up the USA. Colorado bill banning gay and trans panic defense heads to governor for signature into law. On Friday, the Colorado House of Representatives passed a bill to ban the use of gay or trans panic defenses to justify violent assaults or, in the worst case, murders of LGBTQ people. The bill, which had previously passed the Senate, passed the House 63-1, replacing a similar bill that starred earlier in the legislative session. The bill now heads to Governor Jared Polis, who is openly gay, for his signature into law. It should be noted that there are 24 Republicans in the Colorado House, meaning an overwhelming majority of them supported this measure as well.
We queer up the world in reporting that the Polish president, he's at it again, says LGBTQ community is worse than communism. Quote, they are trying to convince us that they are people. The president of Poland, President Duda, compared LGBTQ ideology to Soviet Union era communist indoctrination in a campaign speech Saturday, only days after vowing to ban same-sex marriage and gay adoption and LGBTQ education in schools. Quote, they are trying to convince us that they are people, but this is an ideology. Duda said to applause and chants in his name from the packed rally. Under Poland's populist governing party, Law and Justice, LGBTQ rights have emerged as a very high watermark. Lawmakers have stymied or rescinded queer legislation, while pride parades become pinched battlegrounds between those who believe LGBTQ people should be equal and those that are opposed.
Next week, queer up entertainment. Shangela of Drag Race fame starts charity drive to help out-of-work performers. Drag kings and queens have long been powerful change agents within the LGBTQ community. Lately, Shangela, born Darius Pierce and currently quarantining with his grandmother in Paris, Texas, has been thinking about her fellow drag performers across the country who have not been working for 3 months due to COVID-19. So she has kickstarted a drive that she hopes can raise $100,000 for 1,000 queens to each get a $100 gift card for groceries. In a statement, Frankie Grande, brother of pop star Ariana, said, quote, no artist should go hungry because the world took away their stage.
Tonight we catch up on all the news surrounding COVID-19 with our quarantine quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of the coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. We begin by reporting on coronavirus case numbers. Based on the standard acceptance of 7% of population of the LGBTQ community, the world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 562,267. America's LGBT COVID-19 cases stand at 151,657. And we remind you that America is ground zero of the pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America is 26.9% of the world's cases. We report now on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 30,548, and America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 8,251. The USA is 27% of all of the world's deaths. We report testing facts. As of today, we have 24,827,000 tests have been taken. And because of tests, Q News Tonight recognizes our Hall of Fame top states in testing. Congratulations today to number 3, New Mexico, number 2, New York, and number 1, Rhode Island. We also at Q News Tonight recognize our Hall of Shame states, the states that are doing the absolute worst in testing. LGBTQ America, we continue to say we hope you don't live in one of these states. Hall of Shames are number 5, Kansas, number 4, Colorado, number 3, Oregon, number 2, Idaho, and number 1 continues right from the gate of COVID-19, Puerto Rico.
Quarantine quickies. Landlords resorting to harassment and threats to get tenants out during COVID-19. Watch this.
So my checks went from anywhere from 14 to 12 a week to 200. Here's where he put he come the following Friday with a eviction notice and tells me I need to vacate the premises. And I said, look, I can give you my stimulus payment, I'll give you the whole thing, I can get this caught up, just work with me a little bit. And he said, no, I don't see you getting caught up. It was like a couple of weeks. He comes and he cuts off my water, he cuts off my gas while still in the house.
Despite efforts by many jurisdictions to halt evictions either through formal moratoriums or court closures, some landlords have taken matters into their own hands with illegal self-help evictions and have been harassing and intimidating tenants who are unable to pay rent in an effort to get them out. Amanda Golob, managing attorney of the Housing Law Unit at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services in New Orleans, said her office has seen several abusive tactics from landlords, including changing locks, cutting utilities, and constant harassment via phone calls and text messages.
This does not surprise me, but it is horrible all the same. I hope that there is a federal prosecutor out there watching this closely.
Yeah, it's illegal, and in most communities it's illegal, and the landlords that are doing this practice, I hope those that are affected by it take legal action and punish the landlord for doing it.
So many people are suffering right now without jobs, and if you live in Florida with the terrible unemployment, I know people who've been out of work since May and still don't have unemployment because the system is so broken and they have nothing they can fall back on.
Quarantine quickies. Dr. Fauci warns that normalcy may not return until next year due to coronavirus case spikes. Watch this.
If back to normal means acting like there never was a coronavirus problem, I don't think that's going to happen until we do have a situation where you can completely protect the population. But when we say getting back to normal, we mean something very different from what we're going through right now. Because right now we are in a very intense mitigation. When we get back to normal, we will go back gradually to the point where we can function as a society. But you're absolutely right. I mean, if you want to get to pre-coronavirus, that might not ever happen in the sense of the fact that the threat is there. But I believe with the therapies that will be coming online and with the fact that I feel confident that over a period of time we will get a good vaccine, that we will never have to get back to where we are right back now. So if that means getting back to normal, then we'll get back to normal.
Dr. Fauci cautioned that while it is possible the pandemic could calm down within a year, people need to temper their expectations for their typical summer travel and other activities. As health experts continue to learn more about the virus, it's clear that a time frame for when the situation will be deemed under control is still unknown. As we showed you a few minutes ago, more than 117,000 people have died in the United States in the last several months due to COVID-19.
Well, we're watching it all across the country. Missouri, because of Memorial Day, remember Lake of the Ozarks. Texas and Arizona, which were two of the states that opened the earliest. Florida now. We're seeing it in more than 20 states. escalation of COVID-19 cases, and the escalation of cases means we're going to flood our hospitals, which means we're going to have significant increases in deaths.
The case numbers have gone up so much. People are calling this the second wave, but it's really not. This is still the first wave. It wasn't peaked. It didn't plateau because we opened too early, and it's going to get a lot worse.
As someone who is high risk because I'm diabetic, I just wish my fellow Americans would be more selfish and just take care of themselves.
Well, that is our news highlights that we call Quarantine Quickies. Next, we queue up a segment called Good News. We like to come out of our quarantine reporting by doing something to report on something that made us smile today in Good News.
Coronavirus good news. Civil War era Johnson & Johnson announced black and brown people finally get a Band-Aid. Johnson & Johnson, a household name for many of us, has finally decided to bring equality to their Band-Aid line by introducing darker colors for those with darker skin tones. Born in the Civil War era, white and tan were the only colors. After 130 years, the times are a-changin'. This is good news. Watch this.
The Band-Aid brand is diversifying its color palette. Parent company Johnson & Johnson says it will be rolling out new bandages in various skin tones. For years, advocates have been pushing for more diversity from the brand, which says the new product is intended to stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. Band-Aid says the new line will feature a range of tones from beige to dark brown. And I can say as a dark brown girl, I appreciate that.
Well,
the Band-Aid brand is diversifying its color palette. Parent company Johnson & Johnson says it will be rolling out new bandages in various skin tones.
It's June, LGBTQ Pride Month, and we cue it up now by reporting that Trudeau and Biden have been added to the Global Pride 2020 lineup. Former Vice President Joe Biden, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar are among the world leaders set to headline Global Pride 2020. Organizers are also working with the founders of Black Lives Matter movement to amplify black voices in the LGBTQ community, according to a press release that was issued over the weekend. All of the funds that are raised by Global Pride will be distributed to Pride organizations in financial need, according to event organizers. The event will be viewed online for free at a globalpride2020.org and YouTube on June 27th.
I'm very excited about this. They have so many big names, major celebrities, performers, dance artists like Deborah Cox, Nancy Pelosi. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I know I'm the straight guy in the room, but I'm actually most excited about Kesha being there. I love her music.
Kesha, that's what you're most excited about. All right. So it's June Pride. This is our big hoorah for 2020. I hope it lives up to its billing. I just hope. We are going to queer up community now by showing you the images of White House wall. Trump builds a wall to protect him from America. It's our commentary for tonight. Watch this.
Number one, are you ready? Are you ready? We will build a great wall along the southern border. And Mexico will pay for the wall.
I guess being on quarantine, we were forced to look at the ugliness of America. It made everybody kind of come out here and face the truth and speak the truth in their own different ways. I think people are finally finding different ways to express themselves because everybody's not a protester, everybody's not an educator. I think it's just different ways that people are coming out here and expressing themselves, and it's definitely necessary for the man that's in that house over there.
It means a lot to me because I was in the civil rights movement of the 60s in Atlanta. And this is like, I mean, deja vu. This is just wonderful. It's so great to see so many white people out here. That's what's amazing. And in his death, he is really stronger than life because he brought together so many different groups of people and nationalities. And I mean, this is the key to world peace.
To me, I feel like police brutality is just the tip of the iceberg of the issues that black people face in this country. We still have to deal with gentrification and education for children. And even police brutality, I know that people don't like the term defund the police, but it's more so about defunding them from their contracts that they have, even as a school resource officers. Why do we need officers in schools? So little changes like that would start to shift the world.
We will build a great wall along the southern border.
Well, we don't have much for fences, but as you can see from these walls around me, tonight we're broadcasting from our studio set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center. The museum is in Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
We joke that, unlike me, we're coming from the gayest place on planet Earth.
You're an ally, Chris. You're an ally. We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale for making this set in this living museum possible. Now we end tonight's broadcast of Q News Tonight with the big finish. Short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Q News Tonight's The Big Finish. A tweet has people wondering if SpongeBob came out as queer over the weekend.
So if you are actually a SpongeBob fan, you already know he's been part of the LGBTQIA community for years because it has been said that he is aromantic or asexual. So there we go.
I honestly didn't care about SpongeBob. I cared about Korra from The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra. If you haven't seen that, watch it. It is one of the best American animations of the past 30 years.
SpongeBob is in rainbow colors and a rainbow tie, and he has lots and lots of holes. The big finish. Titus Burgess makes Billboard Pride Prom start with a band with Dance MF.
You know, this is a great time to be an artist, even though you can't have concerts. It's so great to be able to support each other digitally, and you're able to create unique content that we never could before.
You know, this reminds me about after Pulse when I marched in Tampa Pride and I could hear Whitney Houston's Dance with Somebody, except they managed to make it even gayer. I applaud him.
And I have to say, it makes me happy that Billboard sponsored this Pride Prom over the weekend. Because among the saddest I feel the most sorry for in 2020 is our graduating seniors. They've had a tremendous amount taken away from them in 2020. This doesn't make up for all of that, but it's a nice little piece of chocolate for them to consume. In the big finish, Drag Race stars go absolutely silly. My friend Michelle Visage and Rue and others on The Feud.
We surveyed 100 Americans, find out who they thought Steve Harvey had put off the air in the past. Turns out it was Michelle Visage.
Well, for all of my gay friends out there, I'm just going to give you one piece of advice. Go to youtube.com and search Steve Harvey Family Feud Penis. You're welcome.
I saw that on Pornhub.
Once upon a time, early on when I was associated with the show was just counter-revolutionary, and it was what it was. You know you've arrived and you're mainstream when cast members RuPaul and Michelle Visage are on Family Feud. Come on, you're mainstream. In the big finish, No Context Monday. Tens of thousands of people are almost rioting and demanding that Louisiana Confederate statues be replaced with Britney Spears.
And now you know what Arendar's been doing when he's not on the show.
I'm just going to say that a 13-year-old Chris certainly felt some type of way seeing a teenage Britney Spears in a Catholic schoolgirl uniform. God bless you, Britney. You're crazy, but I love you anyway.
You know, the only possible way that you can take a serious subject about the Confederacy, Gone with the Wind, Civil War era statues, and combine Britney Spears with it. It's the only way to water down the white privilege story that is being told there. In The Big Finish, Ghostbusters, yay! The cast has a reunion today. Watch this.
It's so good to see everybody.
It's wonderful to see everybody.
You're a queen, a queen. When he said to me, we've got Sigourney Weaver, it's like, oh, okay, now we're in a whole different class of performer, actor.
I'm still giggling about the fact that Billy came up to me. It was maybe the second scene. I was preparing because I'd been to drama school because now I was supposed to re-experience the terror dogs in the refrigerator, and I just saw some in there actually before this Zoom. But he came over and I don't know if you remember this, Bill, but he went, "What are you doing?" And I went, "I'm preparing." And you went, "You're what?" And I said, "I'm preparing." And you started to tickle me and shake me. And really, you can't do comedy if you're going to prepare. It's ridiculous.
And remember, when somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
I've heard that they even managed, through sheer awesomeness, to capture the evil spirit of the 2017 remake, so we never have to hear about it again.
That had a beautiful boy in it. And you know, I'm a little sad about this story because this is what you get, America, when you replace Napoleon Plays for today with a leather guy, and you replace Misty Eyes with a straight guy, because they would be dueling it out on who you're going to call by singing right now. And I'm a little sad to admit that I kind of miss the singing. The Big Finish. Happy 47th birthday to Neil Patrick Harris.
See, but now you ruined my joke, because I was going to sing the Mustache song from A Million Ways to Die in the West, because that's my favorite Neil Patrick Harris movie, but never mind.
Never mind.
And I was going to sing not just for gays anymore from when he hosted the Tonys 10 years ago, but apparently because I'm straight, I'm not allowed to sing, so to hell with you, Al.
You know, Neil Patrick Harris is wonderful in the Tonys. No, almost nobody can do an opening like him at the Tonys, and that is because he is so gay, right? And that's why, because he's so gay. But I think about Neil Patrick Harris on a story that we reported at New Year's Eve and Christmas of him in a hot tub in Costa Rica. And it was like, holy crap, Neil's got a beautiful body. I love Neil Patrick Harris all over for different reasons than before.
And that is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Q News Tonight. But you must help us. Click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. This is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the world, and your community needs your support.
You are not alone. We will get through this crisis.
We are here with you, and this is Q News Tonight.
So thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of my co-host, guest host tonight, David Hopkins and Chris Swarner, we will see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, America.